Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Psyched to be with you, with me, your host, Christopher Leach, aka Chimp195. We're back. This is the first episode for timey-wimey reasons that is actually being recorded in 2023, so it's fresh for the show itself. The other two, yes, I'm not. I pre-produced that far in advance. I'm very excited. Today's guest is making their podcastoral, if that's a word, debut. So I'm thrilled to be sharing the stage with them and giving them this opportunity. Someone I'm privileged to call a great friend, and someone whose name that I am sure you'll be hearing a lot more of in the academic, the gaming world in the next couple of years. I never miss a chance to really spotlight this person when possible, so I know I had to have them on the show once we knew we were going into season 3. Without any more aplomb or any more sort of butt kissing, I shall pass over to you, my special guest, to introduce yourself. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Hello, as you know, Chris. I'm Beth. My pronouns are she, her. It is my podcast debut, which is terrifying, but also fab. I can't believe you've actually allowed me to come on and ramble for however long. So I apologise for anyone that will listen to this, that you have to listen to me rant or ramble for however long. So I'm Beth. I'm also a PhD. I'm a PhD student, much like Chris, over at Edge Hill. I like to say I am his protege. The word? Am I your protege?
I mean, when we're both students, I'm not sure quite how that works, but like.
Well, you are ahead of me, so we like to think that you opened the door, and I then followed very far behind. Yes, I'm over at Edge Hill. I'm in the video game sphere. I'm definitely not nowhere near your level of expertise, but I've put myself there, so there I am.
We're seconds into the episode and we've already had several self-deprecating put downs and like missed positions on your own expertise. You know, this is your episode, right? There's no one else on it.
I told you, relatable
be
PhD queen.
highlight to everyone how amazing you are, how amazing I know you are. Like, that's the point. Humility,
Okay,
humility, listeners.
okay.
Beth has got it in abundance.
Okay. Yes, I'm a second year now, but I like to remind myself that I've only just started my second year rather than that I've got 2 years under my belt, which I think is very scary. I've only just become a second year, so I still know nothing and I'm learning everything as per. I am working with Dr. Linda Kay, of course, as Chris is, who is amazing, awe-inspiring. I want to be her when I grow up.
Previous guest on the show. Check out season 1.
Well, yeah, just a throwback. And with Dr. Andy Levy, who puts up with me, I don't know how, and my craziness and my brain dumps that are probably far too much and my very long emails, but that is just how my brain works. So yeah, I'm looking at video games, gender, identity, lots of fun things that are very fun to research, but also very overwhelming to research. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot of experts out there with research that is very good and interesting to read. So then imposter syndrome kicks in when you're citing people and you think about the fact that these people might then see what you're doing at some point, and it's like, please go well. I think that's everything that I can say as a quick introduction. That is pretty much me summarized.
That like myself, you also do the teaching sort of side of things as well.
Oh yeah. So I'm a GTA as well. So I teach, which is always fun. I have a lot of teachers in my family. So it's interesting. I've always said I would never teach, but then I teach higher education, whereas everyone else teaches primary schools. But I do really enjoy teaching, I mean, it's a completely separate topic, but higher education is not a great environment at the moment, but I have always wanted to go into the teaching side of higher education. I've always wanted to do both research and teaching, so it's something that I'm happy I do it, and I learn more about myself through doing it. And I also had like a GTA that we play that role at a chill. I had a GTA in my undergraduate who helped my journey to where I am today. So I hope that for someone I can give them that kind of experience, but probably not.
I would also like to point out, for the sake of record, that I have vehemently and will continue to persuade Beth that she may be better served over in the games industry, doing research, doing more fun projects with myself as opposed to sacrificing oneself to higher education. Not that your skills wouldn't be thoroughly warranted and useful over there. I just think, we could be having so much more fun over here in this horrible cesspool. But this one has cookies. Like,
ask that for future Beth, but not current Beth.
Fair. So it's great to have you on the show. Great to hear about your research. I like to, this is not, as I always say, that the method of this show is it's about, well, why, not just what, because we're very easy and very quick to define ourselves by what we're doing, right? So a key part of that is going through journey. So can you take us through your sort of academic career journey? Because, there's a lot to unpack with the research. I mean, gaming, gender, and identity, we could have 4 episodes just on that. In of itself, right? Especially with the Wizard game and stuff that's coming out very soon. Oh
gosh, don't get me started.
At the time of recording, because we're recording this again early because I'm a pro podcaster, so we could have a whole 4-part series on.
Okay, so I'll try not to throw back too much, but I actually got into psychology because of a fear. So I don't know why, I was terrified of dogs when I was a lot younger. Like absolutely terrified. Would cross the road if there was a cute dog walking on the same side street, and then it got even like a very cute dog. I would love. Didn't matter size, which breed of dog, I would cross the road very swiftly to get away from said dog. Despised them to the point where it was obviously then quite dangerous crossing the road because of a dog. So went through CAMS, had that experience with CAMS, kind of tackling that, going through that. I now have a lovely dog called Freddie, who is my best friend. My pride and joy, little Fredwado. But yeah, so I actually got. Oh yeah, fabulous jumper. I'll give no context to that.
Check Beth's Twitter. You'll find it.
Yes, I'd never done psychology before then. I preferred drama and arts and everything that way, and dance. I'm very creative and always wanted to do things like that.
I was going to say that explains why you're so dramatic, but
probably yeah.
That's how you know you're friends with someone when 5 minutes into the episode you're razzing them.
In my core, I'm a drama girly. I'm a theatre girly. So, but I cannot sing. So yeah, always was in that kind of realm, and then got very much interested in psychology from going through CAMS and kind of tackling that experience, and then going through that.
Can you just break down what CAMS is for listeners that don't know?
I don't know what CAMS actually stands for. But it's like a UK-based, is it a charity or an organisation for younger people?
It's like child and adolescent mental health services, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I think they do a lot of different things, like they have a lot of different services through CAMS, but mine was specifically kind of going through a CBT kind of thing, but for a phobia of dogs, obviously, which I think CAMS people have very different experiences depending on what service they've gone to. Mine was quite positive, I do have to say that, but I know it's very different based off what you go in for. But they do a lot of things with mental health in the UK. I think you have to be under 16, if I'm correct, to go.
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but yeah, sounds about right. It's aimed at younger people, right?
Yeah, it's aimed at younger people, and I got referred. I think you can get referred through schools or through like a doctor's, and I just did it through my doctor's, and they kind of sent me straight there. I didn't really have a waiting list either, actually, which is quite surprising for CAMS. I think there usually is, but I got there quite fast, so maybe I was in a service that wasn't really as much needed as other services are. So I went through that, kind of went through a progress of just generally talking to someone about that experience and like what would happen, and then breaking it down, and then almost giving myself like homework. So it started with walking past a dog on the street, and then tracking my feelings, and then building up to sitting on the floor with a dog on the lead, off the lead. Luckily, I had a lot of friends with dogs, so it was quite handy that I could reach out to them.
Exposure therapy at home, folks.
Yeah, basically. So I ended up, it became a who needs their dog walking? I will come walk your dog for you. To then being in my kind of final sessions and being at the point where, now I don't know if they actually would have recommended this or whether this was Joanne, my mum, being very pushy and wanting a dog. But it then became, okay, maybe the final step is getting a dog. Because then I will have one growing up and I'll have that experience. And yeah, so we ended up with Freddie.
So you got a prescription for a dog.
For a dog. Yes, exactly.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for that recommendation because I don't know what I would have done without Freddie now. But yeah, I got prescribed a dog, so here we are now. I went through that, and
It's funny because that's like the classic like. But have you tried going to the puppy room to cure all your mental health problems?
I mean, yes, which is not a good endorsement for that, but yes. So
nice.
Maybe if you're scared of dogs, but for other things, probably not. But if you're scared of dogs, maybe. But that's how I got interested into kind of that like talking therapy side of it. So I'd never done anything with psychology before, and then I got to finish my GCSEs, finished high school, and psychology was an option at the college where I went to. And I was like, you know what? I have a feeling that I am going to enjoy this subject. And I genuinely couldn't tell you what it was, but I just knew there was something that I would have enjoyed about it. So I started A-level psychology, learning kind of the core things that I learned at A-level. So the kind of core Pavlov's dogs, ironically. All the classical studies, and not to sound cringe, but just like kind of straight away fell in love with it and fell in love with the things that we learn about, and learning about behavior and people in this way. I don't know what it was, but I just found it so interesting. So did that, continued it to my second year, and I think very quickly within a couple of months I decided that this is what I want to do, and this is where I want my future to be. And I'd always kind of been interested in teaching, so maybe that's where my like need for going into higher education came. But I remember in my second year we had a specific kind of topic where we looked at issues and debates in psychology, and a key thing that stuck out to me was like the diversity of the theories that we'd been taught. And it was only then that I'd kind of realised that there's not a lot of diversity in those core
or rather
theories.
the lack of.
Yeah, the lack of. And when we found out that there were kind of some people that we'd learned about that were female, me and my brain kind of completely rewired and went, I assumed they were all men. Like, don't know why, I just did. And I was like, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot for saying this, but we'll put it out there as a manifestation. I, in that moment when I am going to go into psychology, I am going to do research, and I am going to be Dr. Thomas, so that then when someone is in A-level psychology, and I know this will not happen, but someone in A-level psychology will learn something that I have done, and then will find out that I am female. And that was like stuck in my head. Now, having been in it for a bit longer, I don't think, I'm not ever going to make a core theory in psychology. So I've shifted away from that, but that was the start.
I mean, you say core theory, but let's be. I'm going to be slightly insular in relation to just the area, but also the podcast. But like, you could, I said at the top of the episode, I see you joining the ranks. Doctors Coet, Dunlap, the prominent video game sort of psychologists. Like I see you amongst those in a few years. You'll be amongst that sort of like people reading scholarly game related things and going, yeah, I like that. Like,
just gonna pretend you didn't say that.
You gotta. What is it you kids say now? Like manifest,
Manifest. We need to manifest.
So by saying it, I'm bringing it into reality.
Put it into the universe, please. No, well, that's where that genuinely was at one point. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So then I went from college to higher education, and I went on, as you do in the UK kind of higher education system as a college student, you tour different universities and things like that. And interestingly, even though my experience kind of started with psychology from going to CAMS and going through the kind of therapy route, I never actually particularly found that area of interest. In a sense that I didn't ever find that as something I wanted to research. I think for a few reasons, really, but I find it absolutely fascinating. But it's not the area that I then swayed towards. So I started my undergraduate degree at the University of Chester, which I absolutely loved. I could not fault. And there were so many modules within that that were so widespread on so many different things that I just found it absolutely fascinating, and I loved pretty much every area. So I did a module on music and art psychology, which
Oh,
was just incredible, and had one of the best assessments I think I've ever done, and allowed me to still be creative. I won't go into that because I don't want to go on off on a tangent,
can you
but then
tell us what the subject of the assignment was, just to wet
so
people's
I
whistle?
picked, you could either pick art or music, and then it was something to do with something in the current like media. So I went down music, and I was looking at two different songs, two different artists, same song, Muse, Nina Simone, comparing the kind of response that you have to them using psychological theory. So very fascinating. One of my favourite assessments I've ever done. Haven't gone into that area of psychology, but absolutely loved it. Then we looked at diversity and inclusion in psychology, which
Or
was
rather the
a
lack
big,
of?
yeah, or the lack of, and that was a module that kind of was my initial start of, this is something I really, really enjoy. This is something that I am particularly interested in. And I remember we did kind of a debate, issues and debates in the media at the time. And I picked gendered clothing in schools and used like news articles and talked about things that had happened in schools where like male students were protesting the school uniform policy by wearing skirts. And I remember doing that. My mum still has that poster on her office wall,
Nice.
which I love. But did that, and that kind of sparked that interest for me. That's when I really started to get into, this is an area that I think I want to go into. And then I started my third year, and we did again so many amazing modules. Animal psychology. I got to go to Chester Zoo. It was so good. Current issues and debates, lots of good stuff. But I started my dissertation, and with my dissertation, I remember it was a long process, but kind of going through, well, what do I want to get out of this? And a key thing was my research skills. And I said, I really want to do something on gender and stereotypes, because that was just something that I'd really like focused on after doing that module in second year, and representation and something in that area. But I really wanted to do something that could hone my research skills, because I at that point knew that I wanted to do a master's. In fact, on my very first day in my first year with my personal tutor, I said, I am telling you now, I have a 10-year plan. I want to do a master's, and then I want to
I
do
was
a
waiting for
PhD.
my chance to ask about the 10-year plan. Let's go.
So started that on my first day. I said I want to do a master's, I want to do a PhD, and I want to be a lecturer and do research in psychology in higher education. So in my third year,
Listeners, if you'd allow me to interject, listeners, it's worth pointing out that Beth, being the trailblazer shooting star that she is, like, is currently on for the 10-year plan, because spoilers, everyone, but you literally went undergrad, masters, PhD, no
I
break,
did.
no rest, relaxation,
I
no
had a
nothing
month
else,
off.
just bang bang bang.
I had a month off.
I had a
Look
month
out.
off. That's the clip. I had a month off.
I did. I had a month off. Yeah. Well, I had a 10-year plan, and I said, look, for my dissertation, I just want to home in my research skills, because I know I want to do a master's and I want to work with something that will make me feel more confident in actually conducting research. And we kind of got inspired by something that a previous student had did, looking at spatial ability and STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this idea that individuals that identify as female are generally underrepresented in particular areas of STEM, and looking at the different kind of cognitive abilities that we have, and any gender differences within those, or lack of gender differences, kind of as a stereotype that there is a gender difference.
Well, again, relating to sort of like your work as a GTA teaching, like that is the kind of thing that undergraduates are told. There is a large research base that demonstrates a gender difference in spatial
Yeah,
awareness, and the
yeah,
actual quality of that argument. Please see, replication crisis elsewhere on the
oh
internet.
yeah,
But like,
yeah.
there are
And
questions
a lot
about
of
that argument.
coming back to what's it got to do with cognitive and what's it got to do with experience, and that kind of links in a little bit later on with where I am now, so I'll try and pull back to that. But yeah, I was like, okay, well, STEM, spatial ability, and stereotypes. We got into this idea of stereotype threats. So I like to use the layperson example of, if a female is told that she cannot drive, does that make her a worse driver? And this idea that having being told that you are bad at something, is that going to affect your performance? So looking at, if we set up this experiment of different stereotype threats, for a range of different participants, to see how it would affect them and to see whether their performance would be bolstered, is that the way you say that word?
Yeah.
Would their performance be better or worse depending on the nature of the stereotype threat, and whether they were the target or whether they're the one that kind of got the, oh yeah, I'm better than you, in a way. So we looked at that. It was very fun, but this is where the technology kind of comes into it. I didn't want to do the traditional tools that are used to assess spatial ability, because they're very long and I don't particularly find them that fun. So we were looking into different ways that we can kind of update it and modernize it. And we spoke about video games, and I was like, Mario Kart. I want to do Mario Kart. I don't know why, I just had that in my head. And then we were like, okay, well, there's been nothing on Mario Kart as spatial ability, so let's not do that. But there has been a little bit on Tetris, and I was like, okay, I enjoy a bit of Tetris.
Who
I
doesn't?
can recognise that link. I can argue that it's still fun, and hopefully it will kind of take that experience factor out, in that most people, you assume, will have played Tetris at one point. If you ever in ICT in primary school played cool math games, Tetris was the one to go for. So we settled on Tetris, as kind of this way of assessing it that's more modern, which links in my start of the video game use, but not super obvious, not super central. It definitely came later on, but that's, I think, where it started to get, the spark came of this, stereotypes, representation, STEM. How can we have better representation of people in these domains that are just very much male dominated, or are stereotypically male dominated? Because I think it depends on which area you look at. I think psychology gets included in science, but then if you actually look at it, there's a lot
It
more
depends on who
usually
you ask.
female students. Yeah. So then I went into my master's. This was COVID times, so I did it all online. So at the University of Sheffield, I did an MSc because I wasn't quite ready to go off and do be on my own and do research. So I did an MSc, looked at something completely separate because there was a little bit more limited options with what you could do for your dissertation. Still found it super interesting, but the key part of that was, we had a grant proposal assignment where you put out, this is a piece of research that I want to do, please give me money for it. Obviously we weren't going to get real money, but I remember doing that, and this is going to link to a later question that I think you're going to ask me, so I'm going to save it for later, not give any spoilers. But I remember doing that, and I got feedback on it from the lecturer, and she said to me, have you thought about doing a PhD? And at that point, I'd had
You
conversations with
whipped
my
out a
family.
binder entitled 10-year plan. I'm like, well, actually, yeah, if you turn to page 34.
And just add it under. Well, to be fair, at that point, I'd actually had conversations with my family about PhDs and that sort of thing. And no one in my family's, my mum's been to higher education and stuff before, but no one in my family has had experience doing a PhD. So there was kind of a lack of awareness of how it works and things like that, and how you fund it and so on. And I'd kind of come to the conclusion that I'd probably need to take a year out to do research, to get experience, because I don't know where it came from, but it was very much pushed to me that you won't get a PhD the first time you apply for one. So I think that really put me off, and pushed me to feel like I wasn't good enough to do a PhD. That really stuck in my head. So then to have that
Which is
meeting with,
kind of ironic, really, because I think a lot of the time that really is the case, just because because it's so competitive. You are
yeah,
usually competing against people that have more experience. It's just like you're
oh
unlikely
yeah,
to get your first shot, and then some
yeah.
people, just like my guest, just shoot the shot and smash it first time.
I think there was lots of factors that helped me there. Like yeah, I definitely was.
As we say, it doesn't matter how you get the ball in the back of the net; just matters that it gets in the back of the net.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I was dead set on taking a year out. I wasn't gonna, which would have been so interesting to think about now. Because you would have been a third year. Well, no, you would have finished.
I mean,
Anyway,
finished
you
in
would have met.
quotations.
You would have met. But yeah, I planned on going into research, hopefully doing something, anything to give me experience. And then I had this meeting, and she said, have you thought about it? And I said, I'll level with you. Yes, I wanted to do this. This is my 10-year plan. But then I've had conversations, and I just don't think it's in kind of my future. Maybe in a couple of years, but not yet. And she said, why not, like, just go for it? I don't see why you couldn't. And then kind of introduce the idea of studentships and being funded and having teaching roles and all the other options available to me, because otherwise I would not have been able to afford it. I know they have the loan now, the government, but even then I think I would have been put off from doing one.
And we
If
can
I did.
both say definitively that the loan does not cover it on of itself. Like,
No, no.
facts.
Yeah, that is another thing, but it definitely, I wouldn't have ever applied if it wasn't for kind of having the funding behind it. It would have not been in my world of kind of, yeah. So I was like, okay, cool, like, thanks. That made me feel better. Like, if you've read this assignment and said that kind of, I don't know whether it was just niceties or whether it was actually meant, but it really did kind of make me think maybe like my idea actually is worth something. So I had that, and then straight away, kind of the next day, I was looking at PhD options on findaphd.com. Woo! And looking what's out there. I found a couple that I was like, interesting, like, this is really interesting. I like this area. And then I found the one at Chill, and I found out it was the kind of open one where you kind of go out your way to find a supervisor who has lots of different opportunities. So I looked into that, found the
As
psychology.
opposed to, for like listeners' benefit, like you can also find like essentially job postings for a
Yeah,
PhD
yeah,
topic they're just looking for someone to do it. And they
yeah.
often
So there was
piggyback on like a supervisor's funded research typically.
yeah. So there was an opportunity at Sheffield at the time, but it was in, again, like you said, it was like a job advert. It was, this is the research project. There might be some flexibility within that, but the actual topic itself was kind of strict, and there was nothing I was particularly keen on. At that point, I didn't have in mind, like, I didn't in my brain at that point go, I want to do a PhD on video games and gender and so on, insert keywords here. But I knew I wanted to do it on something to do with gender, and I knew I wanted it to do it in that kind of realm of diversity and representation and something there. So even though that I feel like that's quite broad, there wasn't much. And where there were things that held me back. So for example, one of them was in London. I didn't fancy moving to London.
I
One
mean,
of them was in
London.
Edinburgh. Yeah. But then one of them was in Edinburgh, but then it wasn't funded. So it was kind of lots of things that steered me away. And then I found out Chill, and I went on to the psychology department. And as they still do, the kind of lecturers that are looking or seeking PhD students or have kind of space available will put out their general area of topic interest. And I can't remember the exact wording of it, but I saw Linda's, and it said gender in stigmatized settings. I was like, green flag. tick, like you're speaking my language. And then I think I don't know whether it said digital games or video games, but I think it said the digital gaming domain. And that was put out as an and or an or. And I saw that and
You
went,
went bang.
yeah, I kind of saw it and went, yeah, both. Both. And I remember emailing Linda and saying, I'm super interested in both. This is what I'm currently doing, not quite related, but this is what I did as an undergraduate. This is what I'm interested in. Like, what do you think? And then we had kind of correspondence back and forth. Linda was speaking to me about the areas she's found of particular interest, and kind of merged together this proposal. And she was so helpful. She had a meeting with me about it, which she definitely didn't have to do because I was only like a prospective student. I don't know whether that's standard, but it was, I already felt welcomed and very supported, which I think really helped me then feel more confident in the process. So I applied, put in this proposal. I got really good feedback from Linda within my proposal straight away, which again made me feel better. It was like everyone was just boosting my ego to apply. Applied. We had to go through the process of, okay, someone's going to look at it. You might then be offered an interview with a panel where you have to kind of do a 10-minute presentation on your topic as if you were presenting it to students, and then you'll kind of get questioned, and then we'll hear back from you. So I ended up with an interview date. I went through that process. I thought it went absolutely awful. I am ashamed to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I cried after it. I do have a expectations versus reality picture of, if anyone stalks my Twitter and goes all the way back, I posted a lovely picture that I took before the interview. I was like, nicely done, and I was so happy. And I posted that picture when I got offered the position. But in reality, I have a picture from the night of the interview where I am red and puffy faced and crying. And I remember walking with my partner to B&M and talking about the fact that I hadn't got it. It was awful. I stumbled. I didn't know what I was doing. I sounded like I had no clue. And I remember then going back to find a PhD and looking at other options and being like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that. But then thinking, no, like if I don't get this, then I'll do something else. I don't know whether this is a good attitude to have, to be honest, and I wouldn't promote it, but I kind of had the attitude of, if it's meant to be, it will be. And if it's not, then I'll do something else. And it wasn't meant for me. My reaction was completely absurd because I ended up with the role, and then started. So I finished my masters in, because I was still doing my masters at this point. I'd found out I'd got the PhD whilst I was still finishing my dissertation for my masters, which was kind of crazy. So I finished my masters in the August. I started at Ed Chill in October. So I had September as a lovely see all my friends before I start the PhD, because I remember scrolling through academic Twitter and seeing people say, make the most of your summer before you start your PhD because you won't get one for 4 years. So I put my entire summer into that month. And then I started a chill in October.
I think it's funny because we've joked about it before, but there are some uncanny parallels between my journey and yours, right? I
Yes,
initially sort of like picked up games as a dissertation topic at undergrad, looked at something completely different at masters, but was still attached to the idea. I went on that, I'm going to use finger quotes here, year out, it was several years, to gain research experience in the real world, quote unquote.
Yes.
Again, finger quotes because real world, all these shenanigans. And had numerous PhD rejections. I was actually the other end of the spectrum where I was like, right, this is the last one. I can't keep getting rejected on this. If this doesn't work, I think I might just have to go back to the drawing board. My experience was interviewing a week before the country shut down for COVID. Also feeling like an absolutely blown the interview. I don't remember crying at that point, but I remember like going back. Liverpool got knocked out the Champions League. COVID was becoming worse, and having a very, very bad Wednesday.
Yes.
And then things suddenly took an upswing. Lol. And having that gap of like, yes, we don't know if we're going to scrap the scheme this year or not. We're going to keep you on hold. We'll get back in touch. Just that sort of thing. So there's a gap there. I remember the first time we technically met, quote unquote, digitally,
That's
was
when I
via
scared you.
well, technically before then it was via email because I remember speaking to you like in August and being like, oh, if you want to chat, if you want any thoughts, like let me know, and you're like, let me
And
finish this
Twitter.
dissertation and have like a summer, and I was like, fair,
Yes.
do that.
Yeah, yeah. I did say I had just so many. I don't know why, but the other day I went back through my Twitter feed. Don't ask me. I don't know why I did, but I went all the way back
Procrastination
to when I
takes many forms.
yeah, I went back to all the way when I first started kind of posting in that academic sphere on Twitter. And I remember posting that, and I remember now it's so strange because I had so many replies to that from like yourself, and then also Danny. Throw back to that podcast episode.
See
But
Danny
kind of
Walker
Danny,
season 1.
yeah, yeah, of like the GTA community, now past GTA community, of people at
They've just
Chill,
they've
and
just finished past the Vivers. They've not nothing sinister.
yeah, yeah. People responding saying like hi, like let me know. And I was kind of like, I love the support, but I need a month. So I was like, I'm sure I'll have questions, but right now I am in disbelief that it's even happening. So yeah, it was very crazy that I then met a lot of people through Twitter. And then I am like, I've met you before, but where? And then I'm like, oh, you replied to my Twitter before I even started. Like, how strange. And then us at the conference on what's the
Gather.
website?
So
Yes,
the
Gather
we
Town.
actually sort of first properly met again, finger quotes technically, but we met at the IGGI conference during
Mm-hmm.
2021. It was
Yeah,
that like September. It was online. It was on using Gather like an online platform. Um,
yeah.
and like if you walked into someone's like the avatar's personal space, your video feeds would pop up. And I was just sat there, and next thing someone just said like "Hiya," and I was like, "Whoa."
Hi. And we've had conversations about this before. I thought you hated me. And if anyone else was watching my little avatar, I was going back and forth to see if you were AFK or not. And I was like, I was walking back and forth, and then I was like, it's weird if I don't say hi when I know that we're both here. What do I do? So I just walked over, and I was like, hello.
And thus a beautiful friendship was born.
It was a great first impression there.
I love the idea of your avatar just like backtracking, like trying to get into a random encounter,
Honestly,
and
I
just
looked
like
like I didn't know where I was. I was just circling. I was like a shark. I was like, like was following you around. It's like that is Chris. I have to say hi to Chris. Like I need to form an alliance with Chris. Like I need to ask him everything I need to ask because we joke, but you are Linda's other student. Like you are a year ahead of me. You are also looking at video games, obviously in a different kind of realm, but it's almost like a perfect tick of someone to ask questions. So I was like, I can't miss out on this opportunity to seek advice while I can.
we subsequently formed the Game Studies Alliance, as we refer
Yes,
to it.
that's true. Game
Game
studies
Studies
crew
Crew.
at Chill.
Yeah.
True. Uh,
So that was great, and I think so. So this is a silly question, right? But indulge me. Like, how did you find making that? I suppose you're not necessarily the best position to sort of comment on it because you haven't finished the PhD. But how did you find that like direct linearity? Because the typical journey is there is a few years gap, at least a year for most people. How so? Okay, frame it in a fun way. In the alternate reality where you decided to just take a year out, what do you think that might have done?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I want to say it would have given me more experience, because I think we've spoke about this with the rest of the PGRs at psychology, in the psychology department. I love them all. It's very supportive, but I am like, I think I'm the youngest, and that does give me a sense of like, I mean, everyone has imposter syndrome as a PhD student. Like, it's just right. We all have it. I'm absolutely not kind of putting anything on anyone else's experiences, but I think age, even on the teaching side, was an instant worry. So I think all it would have done was made me older, but I don't think that that would have made me any less kind of,
And I think
do I deserve to be here?
this is kind of a really good point for listeners' benefit, right? Because that linearity meant that
Mm.
you started at an age that was quite like young by comparison,
Yeah.
right? Again, like a lot of people tend to hit PhDs like mid to late 20s, 30
Yeah.
plus, you know, because there isn't really an
Yeah.
age limit on PhDs. A lot of people do them older as
No,
well.
no. Yeah.
But like having gone straight from undergrad, masters, PhD,
Yeah.
like correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd have started like before you were 23,
Yeah.
just about.
I I turned 22 the day of the GTA induction. That was my birthday on the 1st of October, on the Saturday for that weekend induction. I turned 22 that day, and then
And
I
like,
rushed off to
and
London to go
again,
and
for
celebrate.
context for listeners, like third years finishing their degree at 21,
Yeah,
typically speaking. 18 to 21 is
yeah,
that typical undergraduate range.
yeah,
So you really, like, I know there's the old joke that like you could walk around a campus and people wouldn't know if you were teaching or a student. More
yeah,
so for yourself.
yeah. What I do have to say though is that worry of mine, um, it's always there, don't get me wrong, of the idea of like, do I have enough experience to do this? But I think this is a learning experience.
I also
Um,
think let's also just be fair that like you know you command a room. You have a presence. You don't have the same presence as like your typical student. Like you know who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. Not every student has a 10-year plan, right? And I think that
that is.
that is an energy that's going to carry when you enter a classroom.
I think I've found that I was an anomaly in that sense. I very quickly realised that it's not normal as an 18-year-old or even a 17-year-old because I knew from college that I wanted to go and be a lecturer, and I
Uncommon, but
knew
let's
that.
not focus on normality. We're not looking at 30. We've not done any KS testing. You know what I mean? That's a stats joke for fans.
No, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I do have to say when I had I know we just mentioned Danny, but Danny, I spoke to Danny when I first started. I went and did a teaching observation for him, and I spoke about the fact that I felt very young, and then found out that he was the exact same. So he'd done undergraduate to masters to PhD, and it did make me feel instantly better. Because I did feel like it wasn't like I shouldn't have done that. I felt like I should have had a year out. So it did make me feel better knowing that someone else had done that. And then he's been, well, very, very successful since. So
Hmm.
yeah, I can only hope to follow in his footsteps.
Okay, so that is a really nice. It's a nice journey, I think, to hear about, and I think it's the linearity. I think makes it very relatable. If I'm honest, I think just because like it 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 makes sense logically.
Mm,
You haven't like meandered per se.
yeah.
When and either route's fine, but it's interesting to hear of
Mm,
it in that fashion. So
yeah.
that's the journey. Here we are.
Hmm.
What are we doing
Hmm.
now? Let's talk about your research. Like as I say, we could pull on threads on this for days because game studies,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Obviously, you're familiar with all the other excellent game studies scholars that we've had on the show.
of
Um,
course.
let's I mean, I can flex about me introducing you to big people, big names. Later on, we'll get to
People that
that
I
later.
cite in every paragraph that I make.
But so, what are you actually doing? Let's talk about your research. You obviously PhDs are typically made up of 2 to 3 studies.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
what are you working on right now? Where
Okay.
is it at? And tell us about that study.
So I'm currently finishing off at the end of my first study, but for a general overview, I'll try not to be too wishy-washy, but I say I'm kind of settled in video games, which I am, but in the sense that I'm looking at this idea of a gamer. See Dr. Rachel Coet for anything you need to know about that. But yeah, this
Also,
idea
previous
of
guest on the show,
also
Inshallah.
previous guests. This is just full of shout outs. But this idea of being a gamer, so not necessarily video games themselves, but the kind of community and this identity of being within the video game sphere.
Like, what does it
And
mean to be someone who plays games? These people typically call
yeah,
themselves gamer, right?
yeah, what does it mean to be a gamer? But specifically for people who identify as female, because I'm looking at what does gender identity, or if does gender identity, does players gender identity have anything, any sort of relationship, anything at all to do with this identity of being a gamer? And we could go on and on about it for ages, but we all know that there's a stereotype out there of who is a gamer, and it isn't someone who identifies as female. but there are female players who do identify as gamers and do use that label. I know you have strong opinions on that label, but whether you think we should use it or not, it's out there, and it is a term that people use. So I'm very much interested to see, you know, the female players that do say, I am a gamer, what does that mean for them? So what does that look like? What are their behaviours? What are their feelings? What are their thoughts? All these fun things.
It's a really interesting, like, if we just look at this, like, sector for a moment, it's really interesting, I think, to consider, like, who plays games, because we know there are numerous statistics that say it's actually a pretty even gender split.
Everyone.
Again, it typically sort of is binary, like whether, you know, which we can say is a bit poo-poo, but stats are at least 5 years behind life, at least. But like it operating in the binary, it tends to be, it's actually 50-50. It has a heavily gendered skew, I think, in image, but it's pretty equal. That we can spit and fact. Okay. Gamer itself, I have opinions. I've said this before on the show. I think it is loaded with negative stigma. Also, as well, I'm sure you'll have seen it, but we'll just mic drop it for the sake of, like, Dr. Rachel Coates currently doing a study that looks at gamer identity and dark participation and and the links between identity, which I believe we also actually had a conversation about in a restaurant in Liverpool.
We did.
Way back when. We'll circle back onto that later. But
with some Beths.
it's a really interesting, like, intersection, because I think for so long we focused on, like, well, what does games do? We haven't thought about who plays the games. If that makes sense. And, like, if you think about any construct, it's not necessarily what is taking place, but who is doing it that is important. And you don't have to disclose if you've done this. I am happy to say I have. And one of the last questions is, like, something along the lines of, would you give your life for the gaming community? And I sat there for like 5 minutes and went, I kind of already have. That's what doing a PhD in games means. I already have. I don't know.
I'm already there.
How do I tick this on a 5-point Likert scale? Like,
I'm 2 years deep, friend.
Like, I'm too far gone. Go on without me. where
in the baton.
Yeah, like it was a really difficult button to click, because I was like, in terms of what it's asking me, no. But in terms of, like, have I devoted most of my, if not all of my career to gaming at this point, so much so that I'm so far in I couldn't really change? Yes. So gaming, it's a wild west, to say the least.
It's a crazy place. It's a crazy place. And I'm by no means an expert in games, don't get me wrong. I play a particular type of game. I've not played all kind of maybe again, I hate the stereotype, but the core games that people might see as someone that's interested in games. But maybe this is where my interest comes from, because to me and I think to a lot of people actually that we know of that look into this area, and a lot of the people who do play games, actually, it doesn't matter what you play. It doesn't matter how you play it. If you love games, then you love games, and that's kind of full stop, end it there. I just think that sometimes the loudest voices in the room are the ones that we don't want to listen to. They're the ones that get, kind of give the bad rep to the community, when there's a lot of amazing people who I have spoken to that don't have those opinions.
Well, philosophically speaking, you can say that they're sort of making the noise in order to compensate for something, if I was going to be whimsical.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
So we've got this research paradigm, really cool, really interesting. That's like very loose overview, you'd say, just really generally.
I think that's a loose overview. There's a lot more, like, it's very heavy theoretical base in the psychology realm. I am very upfront with the fact that I do not expect this to make any, like, direct impacts. I'm not looking to make I'm not going to come out with this with, we need to do this to make it better. I'm trying to do something that gives us a foundation for further research. Which,
and I think a lot of people maybe don't pay enough respect to that, because I feel like, again, parallel between us, but like, I feel like you kind of maybe go in with these great noble intentions of, I'd love to do something really impactful, but then actually you go, there is so little research, we kind of need to, like, light the fire of other people should look at this to help create change.
Well, I think in a way there's I don't want to ever say that there's not research in the loose area of female participation and female representation in games, because there is. there is loads, there is thousands. It's a massive area. But for me, like when I've been looking through it and kind of what became the basis of the research with the way it's gone, is that there's so much, but things still happen. Well, let's not go on a rant about it, but things that have happened with Twitch streamers recently only show it. Love it when Twitch streamers just make my point for me. But yeah, even though there's been so much that's been done, there are still things that like I want to know more about. And even if no one else finds it interesting, I do. So it's almost like taking a step back to maybe hopefully, probably not, but even just for myself, give a better foundation of where we move forward. Because like I said, you can go into the debate of should we even use the term gamer? That is something that, do we even use it anymore? And I get that argument and I agree with points in that argument, absolutely. But it's there and it's
you
used.
You can't argue that it's not being used.
Yeah,
It exists.
and same with as much as I'd love to do a piece of research that would stop any sort of hostility from ever happening to anyone in the gaming community, I am never going to be able to do that. And it, unfortunately, people do exist out there who will behave in a certain manner, and I'm not going to be able to stop that. But hopefully, eventually, at some point, I would like to have done something that makes it so that people who are then receiving hostile behaviors are more secure in themselves, in that it won't maybe potentially have as many impacts. But that's not what I'm doing currently, and I'm not going to get that out of what I'm doing currently.
That's
Where
a
I'm
few years down the 10-year plan.
Yeah, that's a working towards. So it's very much, I'm not making direct impacts, I'm doing things that are more theoretical, which I think then again you can go into it loads, but I'd rather stick to the loose base of what does it mean to be a gamer. I think that is better understood, and I'd rather it should be accessible for people to understand it. So this idea of what is a gamer, why do you identify as a gamer, what was your journey, if there was a journey, kind of like we've just spoke about my higher education journey, did you have a journey of identifying as a gamer? That's what this first study has been looking at.
And this is an award-winning topic presentation in terms of I forget the exact wording, but of like a
work in progress.
Work in progress. Yes, that's the phrase.
Yes.
At the BPS Cyber Psych section conference in 2022.
I don't know how I swindled that. I think I just charmed people into voting for me.
I think the quality of the work stood on its own.
Maybe we'll go with that, yeah. But it's not finished yet. Hopefully very, very soon. But because I'm using interviews, and I've got amazing data from the people that I've interviewed, like I couldn't have asked for better participants, genuinely. Not only did they give me amazing game recommendations, but just generally like experiences and thoughts, all of them were I always have this conversation with Linda of I don't want to let them down, and I don't want to let their data down. So I think I've been delaying myself maybe a little bit. I'm a bit protective over what I've done, because I don't want to put anything out there and it be wishy-washy, which as a kind of newbie to qualitative research, which is funny considering both of my 2 studies out of 3 are qualitative, but as a newbie I think that's the worry, because you get better with time and practice, and I've got such good kind of data and such amazing things that my participants have said that I don't want to let them down with now. So in a way I'm stuck in a perfectionist bubble, and the perfectionist procrastination pipeline is real, but I've got Linda and I have Andy, who have amazing insights on how to handle this. So I'm hoping that it will kind of go well, and I will be able to kind of give them as good a representation as what they gave to me. I just want to do it justice, really, because they are the stories and stuff were just incredible. So I'm really hoping it does go somewhere, but we'll see.
And as we typically sort of segue from work to not work, but I feel like a really good way of doing that is if you wouldn't mind indulging me, you're talking about like journeys of sort of engaging with games. What's your journey with that? Like, when did you start playing? What made you pick it up? Like, if you'd be willing to share.
So I think, which is also really interesting with what I'm doing, because I'm looking at this idea of being a gamer and also like gender.
I mean, are you a gamer? Good question.
I'm going to come to that. It's been very reflective, and I would be silly to say it hasn't made me think about myself. But I started playing games when I was a kid. I don't know who kind of didn't really. A lot of people, obviously, that is when you first get introduced. It was the Game Boy. I can't remember which one, but it was my sister's. I've not got the vintage ones you have, Chris. I can't claim to have that. I had a Game Boy. It was my sister's. I stole it. And then I think I had every DS that came out. Pink one, burgundy one, the 3D one, Nintendogs. Yes, absolutely.
Classic.
Every day of the week. All of the Nintendo games, was obsessed. Then swiftly the Wii was very much in the the Nintendo pipeline, of course, but I think that's as I was growing up, I think that was a popular thing anyway, so I think it was just the media at the time. But the Wii, all of the Wii games that I then played, I was obsessed with. I would always do on my sister's like profile on Mario Kart, I would play so I would unlock the different ones for her because she couldn't, and she made me do it. And I was obsessed with a couple of different games. We've had this conversation. I found a petition for it. I have signed it. Bring back the My Sims Detective from the Wii. Bring it on Switch. 100%. That was an amazing game. I don't know how many times I replayed that. I wouldn't argue that it has a replayability factor, but I did. Loads of different games. I would play them every time that my family came around, but then I'd also just sit there and play them. And then I don't play it anymore. I don't agree with the structure of the organisation, but The Sims, me and The Sims was, I should not have played The Sims that much. My Mac does not thank me for it. I did not pick the best option of how to play The Sims. I'm surprised it's still alive, to be honest, that I played The Sims on it that much. And I spent far too much money on The Sims. I'm ashamed to say it, especially now considering some of them are free. I spent money on those. I could have saved so much money, but I spent so much money on Sims. I was absolutely obsessed.
If you're gonna put that down to pipeline, or that type of money has now helped give some of the really good sort of gender related and sort of disability related customizable options on Sims 4.
Yeah, true.
So you help fund the stuff that we've got now. So
I'll take that.
A little bit of causation.
At least one good thing came out of my obsession then. But yeah. But until that, so I think in terms of like gamer and being in the community, I never saw that as me being a gamer. Like I never saw, but I spent like a significant amount of time playing games. But because I did other things as well, so I used to dance, I used to play volleyball.
Wait, hold on. Karate. You mean you're trying to tell me that you're a complex individual that does multiple things that you enjoy and aren't going to define yourself by one of your hobbies only? Whoa.
I know, it's crazy.
Get out of town.
Humanity, what is going on? But I think generally because of that, like I didn't then see that as a I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but I didn't see it as like, I just saw it as something I did. Like I didn't see it as something that actually mattered to me when I genuinely did spend a significant amount of time on that.
You can just enjoy doing something because you enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I never would have used it as a way of introducing myself. It was dance or it was drama or it was karate. It was never, it was never that was never at the forefront of my brain. It's just something that I'd always done, which again was kind of where my reflections come from now. I never played, unless it was like an in-person game, I never really played like community games with other players online. I'm very much a single player, so I was never exposed to like playing a game where there's other people in like the like a co-op and I'm experiencing with other people with the headsets and things like that. So I never had that experience. It was always just me in my own isolated bubble, in a way. So I don't know whether that kind of affected my exposure in a way to feeling like I was part of the community, but it was just something I did. And then
I mean, this might blow your socks away a little bit, but back in my day, all games were single player. We Wi-Fi multiplayer was awful. Gosh, you had to have the Bluetooth dongle to plug into your computer to get your DS just to trade Pokemons. Like, we didn't have multiplayer. Multiplayer was either playing the game simultaneously with your friend in the same room and having the setup for that,
Well,
or
games were
playing
very
the
well
same point of
rounded
the games
when I
and then coming
when
together
I
to
got
talk about it.
Well, games are very well rounded, Kay. I had options, but I just didn't. I just didn't go into them. But yeah, maybe that's why I never really was friends with people that like me, or maybe they did, but I didn't know about it. Like me and my friends never had conversations about games ever, um, ever. So then I obviously picked Tetris for my undergraduate, and throughout university, The Sims. I was absolutely obsessed for like 3 years. I mean, all of my undergraduate, that's all I did in my spare time. Play Sims, do assignments, hang out with my friends. Like that was my hobby. Um, then started my masters, didn't have time, things like that. And then I kind of got into this realm with having these discussions with Linda of the digital gaming domain and these things that pop up. And I'd known about them because I don't live in an isolated bubble in the sense that I am part of society. So I knew that
Thanks for
there were
thanks for
things.
clarifying that for listeners.
I've seen the stereotype of what is a gamer. I think everyone has. I knew of that. I knew of the things that people experienced as females in the gaming domain, but I definitely wasn't in depth as I am now. And I definitely never actually looked into definitions and measurements and tools and these conversations that have been being, for ages actually, that these conversations have been had between researchers of what is this, who are these people, who are gamers, what is this community. So then I kind of went down that pipeline and that rabbit hole. So then since researching it and looking into it, I'm in two minds about it. I'm hesitant. I still think I deal with the fact that, like I've said, I'm not central. I've not played all the core games. I don't like Dark Souls. I don't like the stereotypical games that people play. I don't really play multiplayer games. I'm very much in my own bubble of what I play.
You
But I
mean you don't
spend a
play COD Zombies? Get out.
I know. Sorry. But I spend, and I don't think even time should be something that we measure it based off. So I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, but I do spend a significant amount of time with games, and I have. And I think then me going down this pipeline of looking into the research has made me go, maybe I should say I'm a gamer, just to spite the people that would say I'm not. Um, again, I know the conversations have been negative and it's very loaded, but I think the stubborn part of me says I'm a gamer because you say that I'm not. So in a way, in that sense, yes, yeah,
Okay.
I don't care what people's opinions on the games are that I play, and how I play and things like that. I think if I want to be, and then I am, because this is something that I mean, we research it at this point. I think for me to say I'm not, when I kind of have these opinions, and particularly when I'm so against that stereotype, I am very keen that we have people who push those negative voices out of the way, which I think you might start to see with the labels that have come in since of hardcore gamer. I think because that many people now do say, no, I am a gamer, that the people that then had that attitude of you're not a gamer have now tried to then capitalize on hardcore gamer.
Well, you get this
So
with
I
a
think,
shift though, right? Of like, well, everyone plays a game because,
yes, yeah,
moms were playing Farmville on Facebook,
Candy
like for
Crush,
years. Candy Crush,
yeah,
I
yeah,
know. Famously, your mum is your go-to example of having mastered
yes,
Candy Crush,
Candy Crush,
right? So like, but like, our mums wouldn't necessarily identify as gamers, but they play games.
yeah,
So like, there is this disparate nature of like, well, if a gamer is someone who's played games, it's much more broad, and
oh
therefore
yeah,
there is like a need to appropriate this level of gatekeeping, is what it is basically.
yeah.
Of, I am a superior level gamer for reasons.
I, I think we have that in the stuff that Rachel Coates done, in the sense of player versus gamer. Like, in my opinion, a gamer shouldn't capitalize the group, because, as you said, almost everyone plays video games now. But again, kind of relating back to where I was, when, even though I invested a lot of time in video games and did that I didn't realise it was a central part of my life until now, and it's taken that reflection. But if
Mhm.
I would have never realised that and I would have never looked into that, then I would have never classified myself as a gamer. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a player, because I have played games. And I engage with games, and I have the consoles, and I enjoy different types of games, and I like watching YouTubers play games. That was a big part of it as well, was I watched a lot of games that I either didn't want to play but found really interesting, or didn't have kind of the access to because of whatever console I had, or money. I watched a lot of games, and that also led me into knowing about games more and knowing about people who play games. So I think it was my own personal kind of journey of, yes, I am. And again, in stubbornness of reading and the things that people like to, I say people, but it's a very small group of people. But as we said, it's people really don't have this attitude, not the people I speak to anyway.
Mhm.
They're very much about games being for everyone, and anyone should be able to play anything they want. But that small group of people, I think I do it out of stubbornness.
So again, I
That I
think
am.
I think we could easily do like another episode just on you and your hobbies, because you do an awful lot of really cool and fun stuff. Fun stuff
Not
is
anymore.
that sounds too close to a swear word. We're not going to make that anything. Cool and fun, different words, everyone. Words. Um, but just like to round this off, though, like, what are you playing currently? What do you like to play? What do you go
Okay.
tos?
I think it's a loaded term, but I'm a very much a cozy gamer. People don't really like that term. I am a bit. Again, that's another episode, but I very much like those cozy farming games. So it's basic, but come on, Animal Crossing. I'm
Classic.
sorry. Everyone likes Animal Crossing. I don't care. I've been sipping a Starbucks this entire time for the people who are listening. I am basic, okay? Leave me alone with my Animal Crossing.
Hold on, yeah, I'm
But
basic here with my Starbucks and Animal Crossing, and like
yeah,
working towards my PhD with my 10-year plan. Yeah, so basic.
yes, I am basic. I love Animal Crossing. Um, I love Nintendogs. I love all the My Sims games. I do like Sims because of the design element. It makes me feel like an interior designer. Yes, I designed my uni room when I used to play that. I don't play it as much anymore, but I love games like that. Cozy Grove, I've recently been playing. Obviously, Pokemon, always Pokemon.
Nice.
I can't not play Pokemon. We know that, we've had many conversations about that. Eevee tattoo yet to be had. Um, I've also recently played It Takes Two with my partner. Thank you to my participants for that recommendation. Slightly traumatized by spoiler, but the elephant, but also
Say say
thoroughly
say
enjoyed.
no more. But like that, okay. Traumatized. Yeah.
Yeah, so much fun. Looking into more games like that now. Also started playing Cyberpunk. Thanks for that recommendation. Awful at certain aspects of it because I've never properly played like a shooting game before, but I really like the story. Enjoying that. League of Enthusiastic Losers. I've got that on my list to play as well. It's in there. It's downloaded. Spiritfarer, if I've not mentioned that,
Oh, wait.
even though we've had conversations about the accessibility, which upsets me a little bit, but it is a very good game, so it's a bit annoying that
So
there's
for
issues.
listeners' context, like I enthusiastically booted up Spiritfarer one evening, playing my Switch
Yeah,
in handheld mode, and then could not read any of the text. And there were at the time of playing no way to increase
yeah.
the text size at all. I don't know if there is now. I
I
don't know if
don't
it's
know
been
if there is now.
sorted.
Yeah, I have to, yeah. Maybe add a comment in later on, like if there is now, because I don't want to kind of
But I
slag them
think
off and say
it
not,
kind
but
of like it says a lot that rightly or wrongly, that made me put the game down, and I didn't pick it back up
yeah.
because there is an
Well, I
oversaturation
think,
of games. Right? There's too many games, not enough time. Right?
yeah,
So
that's
as
true.
good as I know
That's
it is
true.
objectively, and I know that it's the type of game that I would like and the type of game that I
Yeah,
enjoy, I'm basically gonna have to play it on a big screen. And just that moment of feeling sad that made me feel
yeah.
like the game wasn't for me was just enough for me to not go back to it.
Which is awful because I think it was an amazing game to play. Like I adored it, and the storylines, and it might not, some people they might find it a little bit boring, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and even the play was just as good as the story for me. This links to your work, but the play was just as good as the narrative for me, and it gave me everything that I was after, and I was very happy with that. That's an ideal game for me. Um, Also Kind of Words, which is a mobile game, but I found that on Twitter. I don't. It's a mobile game. It's not like a traditional game in the sense of you won't. It's a standard mobile game. I would say you go on it once a day. You do something and then you come off it. But the message behind that and the things that they're doing, I'm really enjoying that. But
Kind of
that's
is that the one where you send the letters?
yeah, when you
Kind
have
of
like
words, yeah, yeah.
plans, and you can like track your emotions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that game. But again, it's only kind of a once a day thing, so I'm using it more as a like a reflection
A
process rather
habitual
than
tool.
actual. Yeah, not a game. It's a tool
So
for
you know what
me.
you also want to get on because I'm gonna like again be self-insular in the show, but I streamed most recently Islands and Trains.
Oh,
It's a sandbox where you build an island and you build trains. And I spent 4 hours of the happiest I've been in a long time just
I was about
building
to
a
say,
happy little island, putting a little train on it, and making it go choo choo. It was
give me
great.
an island, and I'm automatically intrigued by that game.
But also, trains.
I'll tell you what though, I've actually been I've not played Animal Crossing for ages. And I think this is so interesting that I see Animal Crossing as a cozy game because I played it when I was younger on the original Nintendo when you used to get shouted at by if you didn't save your game
Mr.
because it would
Rossetti.
automatically say yes. I like that was terrifying. That's my throwback. So in COVID especially, I think for everyone though, that was such a good experience to have that game. It was the nostalgia that we all needed. But I stopped playing it and then branched out into other things, which I think is good. But I stopped playing it and branched out into other things because TikTok, I love you, but I'm blaming TikTok. Um, I love the cozy gaming community. I have so many videos saved of recommendations, but I was so overwhelmed with the Animal Crossing community of how beautiful people's islands were that I then had imposter syndrome about my island not being good enough.
Oh,
So I
wow.
restarted, I don't know. So to the point where it should have been relaxing, and then I made it into something where it wasn't relaxing anymore because I was so stressed about it being perfect, even though I am the only person that will ever see. Well, I mean, you've seen it, but I'm the only person that will ever see it. And I don't know why. I
Tell
got really into my head
tell me you're
about
a
it.
PhD student without telling me you're a PhD student.
It was
I'm so terrified my island isn't perfect.
people had perfect islands, and I was like, "How are you doing this?" And I spent so much time saying, and I was like, "But now it's not original. I need my own island." And I was like, "I'm just giving up. It's not fun anymore."
Whereas mine was get the island how I wanted it, achieve the 5-star rating, done.
Off.
100 hours, smashed it. And I was like,
Well, I downloaded the app to go to other people's islands to get money from them, so
I
I
was
was
like
impressed.
straddling like that and Final Fantasy VII Remake and just
Oh yeah,
perfect, exquisite experiences to go between just like bang, bang, like, yeah, action, RPG,
that
chilling island.
different. Yes, yes.
That was,
So I've not played it in a while,
regardless of
but
the really horrible global situation at the time, for gamers, that was a good spring.
that was good. It was good. It was good. But yeah, that's what I've been playing recently though. A bit of a mix, but yeah, mainly cozy, mainly things to relax because for me there's enough things going on in like the world where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna stay over here in my island, like in my with my Switch and my matching mat that's pink with my matching pink keyboard and my pink headphones, and I'm gonna stay in my world with my candles and my chill. And yeah, you can go play all the stressful games. I'm gonna stay over here in my little bubble and enjoy myself.
Lovely. In that note, that I can inverse recommend Donkey Kong 64. Don't play that. It's terrible.
I used to always play the Donkey game at the Donkey Kong co-op. You know when they had Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong? I played that on the Wii so much, and I was so upset that like that wasn't like it. If you were one character, you didn't really do as much, which is why I loved It Takes Two so much because it really was like equal, which I found amazing.
I think like I've been playing co-op games with a friend for like a long time. So like there's a really good roster of like solid co-op experiences that are like
Yeah.
truly built for co-op. And like I think It Takes Two did a great job
Oh
of
yeah.
bringing that like to everyone's like
Yeah.
coherence.
Mm.
So I feel like
I won't go.
obviously, you're a complex individual, as we noted. So we can't possibly encompass everything that you do. But I feel like we've given a good idea of like what you do in work, what you do in your outer work. I think that's quite nice, quite nice meshing. So as we sort of round down to the last few of the scripted questions, I always like to throw some fun questions at you.
Oh
And the
gosh.
first one is, you're a researcher, so you don't have to limit it to research, but typically researchers do. But blue sky question: you have unlimited access to resources like people, experience, software, money,
Oh.
real estate, whatever you need, right? What are you
Okay.
going to do with it? A project or organization or what? Like, what would you do?
Okay, so a few things. I'm actually going to go, it's not really research related, but I'm going to highlight two things before I think this will link back to something I said before about my masters. So I'm going to save that for a second. But
Okay.
two things I would do first with all the money that I would have is I would fund the projects that are not being funded. Because I think, well, I'll put the papers out there that aren't being given the money to be put out there, because there's so much interesting stuff that isn't being put out there that should be. People who will probably do a lot more interesting things than I'm doing, fund it. There we go. That's some of it gone that way. The second thing I would do, which might be a thing, right? If it is, I've not heard of it. Please introduce it to me. I want a journal, and I've always wanted to do this. I want a journal called the File Drawer, because from undergraduate I used to get told about the file drawer and the fact that papers that get non-significant results are very rarely published. So maybe I wouldn't call it the file drawer, I'd call it
The
like
Journal of Non-Significant Results.
yeah, is that a thing? If not, I'm making that, I'm funding that.
So I don't believe it is a thing, but that is a thing I'm sure
It's just
many people would be on board with you to make.
how, I just think, even if, I mean, there's a thing of, there's so many non-significant findings. Maybe I'm being biased because my dissertation was insignificant, not significant. This is
You
my
mean your
bias coming out.
p-value wasn't good enough? That's all it is.
The first paper to be put in there is mine. It doesn't matter how terrible or whatever it was, it's going out there. But I think, one, it'd be funny to have it be called the file drawer or the insignificance or something like that. But I think there's so much out there that won't have been put out there because it's not significant. And then it's a direct kind of, well, that person said it's significant, well, this one said it isn't, and it's right there in that journal. So that is what I would do. I would start a journal. There you go.
There we
It's
go.
not really research, but I do that. In terms of actual research, we've had this conversation, so this will ring bells for you. But I definitely want to go into, I mean, there's lots of gaming things that I would look at, but a lot of people that would probably do other things that could be more interesting than what I would do. So in the realm of going back to STEM and female representation, but also imposter syndrome, which has kind of popped up a few times, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. I would look into, I know some people call it imposter phenomenon now. I can't say that word, so I'm going to stick with syndrome because I can't say that word. But the workshop from the paper that I found that they looked at kind of struggling with imposter syndrome and working through it, that they did with nurses. I can't remember the paper now, to be honest. But the paper where they had like an imposter syndrome workshop with nurses, I so want to see if that could be implemented in STEM, in all forms of STEM subjects, for students, for leaders, for staff, but then also for PhD students, and for people in the gaming community. You've said it would be perfect there for kind of streamers that maybe don't get the views that they deserve, and are still kind of going on because it's something that they're passionate about, because it is hard to kind of get into that. I give props to anyone that does it because I wouldn't be able to, but just pushing. shout out to Chris, go and watch Chris's stream. Just a plug, buy his merch, guys. But no, I think I don't know whether it would work, so they definitely have to do research into it first. But we all speak about imposter syndrome, and I think there are things out there for kind of like tackling it. But I think for me, I would find a workshop that gave me tools and gave me access to tools to utilize every day. I would find that very helpful. So maybe, again, my own bias in that I want to do research for something that I would benefit from. But I think that is
research nepotism.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. But yeah, I think that would be very well implemented, but not even just for kind of like female students. There's a lot of other people that I think could really benefit from that being implemented, but that costs money. And again, you'd have to have the research to back it up first, but I'd love that to be replicated with other areas and subjects, and then see if that is something that's worth putting in there, because I think that that's a big thing that everyone deals with. So
I love that like it's framed in the context of not just research to confirm everyone has imposter syndrome, because we know that we do, but
we know,
how can we help sort it? Like that's the real emphasis.
I think I think it's something you're always going to struggle with, but I think if there's something that can be implemented to help people tackle with it, because I think we have a very supportive community in the PGR department at Edge Hill, with the psychology, with our psychology friends, with
psychology
our fellow GT, who are constantly hyping each other up, and constantly being there to support each other and slapping each other on the back and congratulating each other. And we are each other's own personal hype people. But I think if you don't have that community, we know that the PhD can be isolating anyway. So especially for PhD students, I think something like that would be amazing. But that's just my bias. There's probably other stuff.
Comes out this really wonderful eloquent speech and like idea of like really wonderful support networks, but that's just me being biased. Okay,
that's just my money. That's how I'm spending it. So other people can spend it differently.
One of my other favourite, I think, questions on the show is there one that like you've mentioned, or maybe even you haven't, because you have mentioned a few names, but like that you'd like to give like a shout out to? Because I think when we talk about like what we're doing and how we got there, like there are always really important people that have impacted that road. So anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to? Again, you've rubbed shoulders with the greats. Dr. Linda Kay, Dr. Rachel Coa. You've been engaged with some celebrity, in no small part thanks to your boy over here. I'm joking. I'm being facetious.
He's not wrong
though. But like anyone
you help with my fear of speaking to people by just forcing me to speak to them. So I very much thank that. My anxiety thanks you for doing it for me, because otherwise I would sit quietly in a corner, which is ironic because anyone that has actually spoken to me knows I am the loudest person in the room, but not if I don't know you. Because
so pro tip for your friends if they're ever a bit awkward with that. Best way to get them to speak to people you want them to speak to is just take them for dinner. Just go out for food, and then especially if it's that British thing of, well, we're at the dinner table, I can't possibly just sit in silence. That would be rude.
No. It's true. Also bring cake.
Bring cake also. Cake really enhances most situations.
Yes. In terms of, I'm going to do a shout out for the people for the journey, because there's too many researchers I could name. So I'm going to go for the people that helped me where I am today. So
we try to limit to either a collective or a singular person.
Okay, well, Nikki Dean Marshall for telling me why don't you do a PhD, because that was a turning point. But I've told her that in person at Cyberpsych, so she knows that. But not to harp on or try and influence, because she is our DOS, but genuinely Linda. I think one of the things I saw was the best advice I saw someone say about the best advice for a PhD is pick a supervisor that you work with well, because it doesn't matter how great you are, if you don't have a supervisor that works well for your kind of style of work or learning or is supportive, then you're going to find it incredibly difficult. And Linda is my perfect supervisor. She, every time I feel like I'm nope, not good enough, like in a procrastination zone, me over Christmas, I feel like it's just the absolute imposter syndrome of it all. Linda her feedback is just so amazing, and not in a way that she tells me I'm amazing. She gives me very constructive feedback that I need, but she is always there to remind me that I'm doing well. And I think you need someone like that on side to get you through it, because if you don't, I don't know how I would have done it without that kind of support. Probably wouldn't be where I am now. I probably would have been very tempted to not continue. But her support is a constant kind of, and yours as well, Chris, to be honest. I'm not. You have many a quotes when, I mean, you literally did it at the start, but I can always count on you to hype me up. Maybe too much sometimes, that I feel like you set expectations that are way too
The
high.
limit doesn't exist. It's fine.
The limit does not exist.
You can't be hyped enough.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, a lot of people, but we've not got time. So you and Linda, my cyber crew, we've got to shout it out. We're taking over and chill.
True story. True story. Okay, that's excellent. Is there anything? Because I like to do a little fun section at the end. But is there anything else that you sort of like want to give like a shout out to? Obviously, we're recording this a month ahead of time. It's gonna go out in March. Anything that like coming up that you want to give people like a nod to, a direction to? Like you're hoping to be at any conferences this year or anything?
If there's a Cybersight conference, I will be there. I don't know whether I'll present or what, but I will definitely be there.
I mean,
We
I
know
don't
what
believe
happens.
at the time of recording they know where it is at the moment, but there is hoping to be one at some point somewhere.
If it happens, I will be there. Par that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It might get rejected. If it does, it does. But hopefully, I've got a critical review, which will show some of the stuff I've been doing that I worked on with Linda. I really hope so because I spent time on it. But I don't know what will happen with it. Until then, I'll keep you posted. To
Excellent.
be, to be decided. We'll see what happens in the future. Not much, but hopefully something soon.
All right. Well, in the spirit of Animal Crossing and cozy games,
Oh
you are
gosh.
going for a rest and relaxation break. Your biodome of your choice, whatever. Because
Okay.
I'm not going to choose the weather for people. And you are going to take with you one film, one album, one book, and one video game. If it comes
Yeah.
as a collection or as a box set and is sold as one physical item, you can take that.
Okay.
All the devices that you need to play it or use it will function
Okay.
limitlessly with endless power, etc. Because it's my magical question. The rules are however I want them to be. What are you taking with you?
Okay. What was first
Well, you can do
on
them
the
in any
list?
order you want,
Books
but
or
I think typically like a
okay.
film is first. Film or TV show.
For a film, Little Women, the one with Florence Pugh, very recently,
Nice.
every day of the week. Little Women. For an album, very difficult. Um, I have to go with Phoebe Bridgers. You knew it was coming. It has to be Phoebe Bridgers. It was a close second to the Hamilton soundtrack, but it is Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher, my queen. We love her. You know that. Book.
But I think
Um,
just while we're there, though, it's worth pointing out that like we could have done a whole other episode just on music. You're a
oh,
big music fan. Like
absolutely, yeah. That is, yeah, we know that.
I mean,
Um,
we have legitimately spent hours discussing
Talking
music,
about
analyzing
music,
music.
yeah.
We've been to gigs together. Like
I have some good gigs upcoming this year. I'm telling you now, I have a very good list of gigs coming up, but we'll
including
say that.
Father John Misty. Let's go.
Amongst other things, Harry Styles. Um,
We're still waiting for that Boy
uh,
Genius tour to get announced.
oh yeah, yeah, it will happen. I'm manifesting. A book, Song of Achilles. I cry every single time, and I love a good cry. If you can't tell by me picking Phoebe Bridgers,
Whoa!
um,
Pick sad girl music. Pick sad girl book. What?
she's more than just sad girl music. Okay, she's more than that. She's complex.
I'm using your
Uh,
own words. What's the name of the playlist? You're the main character playlist or something.
I have many. I have many. Romanticize your life. I have too many
Crying
playlists.
at a rainy window.
Yeah, just driving in the rain, crying. It's just too many. But and for a game, I want to say Animal Crossing because then I could design my island within Animal Crossing, and then I could emulate that on my island. You know, perfectionist. But I think I'd get bored, so I'd probably go with a Pokemon game because I don't think I can ever get bored of Pokemon. Um,
Where do you stand
I
on
don't know what
Stardew
Pokemon.
Valley / Harvest Moon / Room Factory?
Oh, I love Stardew Valley. I do love Stardew Valley. It's in my favourites, but I wouldn't pick it. I think I take it in points. It'd get too much. Whereas I think if I pick a Pokemon game, I'm not going to get bored. I think it's the replayability is endless.
Do you
Whereas
know
I think
which one you would take?
I don't know which one I would take.
Ooh, okay, it's a tough question.
I'd
It's a tough
tell you.
question.
Oh no, No, I don't. I don't want to pick which one I would take, but I would take a Pokemon game. As long as it's got Eevee in it and enough variations of Eevee, I'll be happy.
Pokemon.
That's my only.
Let's go.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with those before I change my mind because I will change my mind, especially on music. But
Okay, all right, that's fine. So before we wrap up, I always like to invert the podcast and give you, the guest, the chance to ask me a question. I have had the Desert Island one a few times, the what are you researching a couple of times, the Blue Sky question a couple of times, I think, at this point. So anything that isn't those would be great. But have you got any questions you'd like to ask me?
So, in the element of music, because it is our main majority of our topic of conversation,
which is ironic given we both research games. But you gotta have non-work related time, recreational.
Yes, exactly. And otherwise we'd just go off on rants. But because we have to stick with our queen, Phoebe Bridgers, what is your favourite Phoebe Bridgers lyric?
Lyric? Oh, mate, wow.
Lyric.
Wow.
Not song.
Lyric. Line. Oh, gosh.
Line.
That is a question. I'm going to try and, not think about it too hard.
You're not allowed to push it back on me either.
No, I'm not going to. I won't. I think I was about to give one. I think it was Better Oblivion Community Center, actually, so I'm going to veto that myself in my own brain. So the one I was going to pick then was, it came as a shock to find that I was fine with what I've lost. Because that's a great lyric. But I think, for the listeners' benefit, my hands are behind my head. I'm actually rotating on my chair. This is an absolutely devilish question. This is so difficult. I'm probably gonna get the line wrong, but you'll know what I mean. And I forget. I actually forget what song it is, but it's the one where it's you can say so much without knowing what you're talking about. It's talking about someone's mum.
I hate your mum. I hate it when she opens her mouth. It's amazing to me how much you can say when you don't know what you're talking about.
That's it. It's the start of that line. I can think it's amazing to me.
Yes.
But that is an exquisite line.
How much you can say when you don't know it. I feel that every day.
I mean, is that not academia in a nutshell?
Oh, there's so many others that you could have picked to represent academia. That should have been my question. Pick a Phoebe Bridgers song lyric that represents doing a PhD, but you kind of did that.
I feel like both are still applicable.
Both apply to that lyric. Yes, good choice. Very good choice.
Because that was just off the top of my head.
It sticks.
You could do a deep dive, and I could send an essay's worth of analysis.
Oh yeah.
Because
I could do an essay.
But
oh yeah, that's for other people to listen to and go down that journey. I've introduced a couple people now who have spiraled in the journey of Phoebe Bridgers, and I think once you're in there, it's a rabbit hole.
I've said this before, but I think just the artistic notion of the music combined with the lyrical and musical composition combined with the vocals is just beyond doubt exquisite.
Well, you said it yourself. Potential our generation's Bob Dylan. That's a big claim.
So I would go so far as to say if because Bob Dylan was prolific, that was one of the things. Album after album. But if Phoebe Bridgers can maintain a good frequency of albums that are the quality at which she produces, and to be fair, I'd include the Boy Genius stuff within that because that's also very high quality.
And even the stuff she's done at Better Oblivion Community Centre.
Yeah, the potential is there, and I would go as far as say I think she could be our generation's Bob Dylan.
One of my favourite songs of Phoebe Bridgers, and I never include it because I think it's a cop-out to pick a song that isn't from one of her albums, but is The Gold that she did with the Manchester Orchestra. That song is, honestly, it's probably in my top 5 of favourite songs ever. And The Gold is just so outstanding that I just
even
have no words.
Even the Minions soundtrack, Goodbye to Love, is
even
a
the
brilliant
Minions
song.
Not me crying to the Minions film because of Phoebe Bridgers. What? Well, I mean,
The
yeah, I think
Metallica cover of Nothing Else Matters, like, wow, wow,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, I'm now a child of divorce because her and Paul have ended their engagement. So I'm shocked. However, I can't say I'm not excited for the album that's about to come out because of this. It will be outstanding. It will be anyone in her fan base knows what I'm feeling currently. But it will be an outstanding album. I am very excited when it comes out eventually.
Another song of Phoebe's that is slapped on. It is Better Oblivion, but Little Trouble. Like, I think it was like a
Yes,
single, but
very,
like, that
very,
is,
very good. Yeah,
oh,
very good. I
exquisite.
think a lot. I've not been really disappointed with any collab she's done. Every collab she's done with all of her art. She did one with Marcus Mumford as well, and so good.
I do honestly
Just
think, I honestly think that like you, it's one of those. Phoebe Bridgers is one of those artists though, that you listen to and like there are no skips. Every
oh
song is
no,
of a legitimately high quality. Like you might like
yeah,
want a certain one more than like another,
mhm,
right? Like because they're all great. But like
yeah,
Motion Sickness is just a 10 of 10 banger. You could, you know what I
oh
mean?
yeah.
But like
That I
they're all
gave
just so
Irma.
good.
I gave Irma, which for context of viewers listening is another GTA at the psychology department in Edgehill. But I gave her 3 moods of Phoebe Bridgers. She said she was ready to listen. I gave
Oof.
her 3 moods and said, pick a mood and I will recommend. And now she is in the rabbit hole. And she said motion sickness specifically has been on repeat. And I said, just wait. That's only the start of the journey, my friend. You will keep going.
Did you present the moods in meme form?
No, but I should have. I said like mood 1 and then I gave keywords and then I said mood 2. No surprise, every song, every mood had sad in it, which she is not just a sad girl. You won't say that about Bob Dylan. Okay, she makes better music than that, but it was just in the way that I described them. But I gave them all descriptions that I'm very proud of and then gave recommendations.
I think it's the overwhelming sense of a crushing existential despair that
Yes.
comes through all of her songs, which is very much
Yes.
the zeitgeist of life as humans know it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like just I just say sad because I can't say that every time, but that is the overwhelming sense of like the weight of the world that listening to Phoebe Bridgers gives you. And it's so reflexive that I'm like, do I want to be feeling these things? Probably not, but I am anyway. Let's just
I'm
listen to
not
it
sure
on
how I
repeat.
feel about it, but I'm going to keep doing it because I can't
I'm going to
stop.
listen to it every day on repeat, and I don't know how it's going to affect my psyche, but here we are.
And on that bombshell,
And that's
we'll
how we end.
we will write down the episode with the final question of where can people find you to find your Phoebe Bridgers recommendation lists, academic nonsense, and slash or memes.
Twitter, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but it is Twitter.
I
Yeah,
mean,
just
we'll keep pretending that it works for as long as it pretends to work.
yes. Yes. Until then, for now, I'm in denial, but it's Twitter. Yeah.
Well, I've said Twitter's not long for this world on several episodes at this point,
Yeah.
and it's still kicking. So let's just hope for the best.
Still here. I think the only good thing about Twitter is the academic community that I'm part of anyway. The people that I follow and I have on my feed is a very good community, and that's probably the only good thing about Twitter.
Worst case, we'll just have to like actually start using LinkedIn and just deal with it.
I don't really want to do. It's a
No,
scary place.
no, we don't. But
There are
anywho,
scary people.
Beth, as ever, as I knew, an absolute delight to have on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for coming to rant.
Been a delightful discussion. We've spoken for many an hour, for many a day before, but it was great to give you the chance to launch yourself on the podcast. Hearing you in your own words, or being muddled with layers of self-deprecation, talk about your work and things. I said it at the top of the show. I'm going to say it again. The name Beth Thomas. You're going to be seeing that a lot in the near future. I think it's going to be a household name, and you'll look back on this as your first podcast interview with relish and delight.
Hopefully.
Any other last words? Anything you want to just sort of say before we wrap up?
Soon to be back when I know what I'm doing.
Welcome back anytime.
We'll do a year on from episodes. How have things changed?
We'll wait till you qualify so you can have the title in the show.
Yes, just for that reason, yeah.
Just for that reason. Okay, well,
Thanks.
thank you everyone for joining us for this episode. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, this is episode 3, so we're 3 months into the season. Very exciting. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do look out for all the links mentioned in the show below, or wherever you find this episode, to links to Beth's Twitter and such. Otherwise, take it easy and look after your mind, body, and soul. For the people watching the video, we'll now click on the ending stream link or ending video link. There we go. Thank you for watching. Take it easy, and bye-bye.